Most men today are harmless, not because they are good, but because they are weak, predictable, and emotionally exposed. They are ignored, used, disrespected, and they don't even know why. Most people misunderstand danger. They imagine raised voices, clenched fists, reckless aggression. They confuse chaos with power. But true danger has never announced itself with noise. It has always arrived quietly, already decided, already prepared. Violence is the last language of the weak-minded. The dangerous man does not rush toward conflict. Conflict bends toward him. Understand this clearly. The most dangerous transformation does not happen in your hands, but in your mind. When a man stops needing to prove himself, he becomes unreadable. When he no longer reacts impulsively, he becomes untouchable. This is where danger is born, not in rage, but in restraint. Machiavelli warned rulers not to be quick with cruelty, not because cruelty was immoral, but because uncontrolled force exposes intention. The man who strikes first reveals himself. The man who waits learns everything. Internal danger means you have mastered your impulses so thoroughly that nothing outside of you can force your hand. You do not explode, you calculate. You do not threaten, you let uncertainty do the work for you. The harmless man believes strength means confrontation. He believes dominance must be demonstrated loudly. That belief makes him predictable, and predictability is weakness disguised as confidence. The dangerous man understands something far more unsettling. Control over oneself creates control over outcomes. When emotions are disciplined, others lose the ability to manipulate you. Watch carefully how people behave when they realize you are not reactive. They test you at first. They provoke. They poke at your ego, your pride, your patience. They want confirmation that you are like everyone else. But when they realize that insults do not move you, that pressure does not rush you, that urgency does not corner you, something shifts. Their tactics fail. And when tactics fail, fear begins. Internal danger means you are no longer governed by the need to be seen as good, nice, or agreeable. You understand that morality without strength is irrelevant. You can be calm without being soft. You can be respectful without being submissive. You can listen without surrendering your position. This balance is what Machiavelli admired in effective rulers. The ability to appear gentle while remaining immovable. A violent man reacts to the present moment. A dangerous man prepares for the future. Violence solves nothing long-term because it burns bridges and exposes desperation. Internal danger preserves options. It allows you to wait while others rush, to remain silent while others confess, to observe while others reveal their intentions without realizing it. Every unguarded word spoken around you becomes leverage, not because you seek to exploit, but because you understand human nature well enough to know that people hand over power freely to those who do not demand it. There is also a darker truth most men avoid admitting. Internal danger means you are capable of force, but not dependent on it. You are not dangerous because you hurt people. You are dangerous because you could, and you don't need to prove it. That possibility lingers in the background of every interaction. It changes how negotiations unfold. It changes how boundaries are respected. It changes how silence is interpreted. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both. But fear, in its most effective form, is not terror. It is uncertainty. People fear what they cannot predict. They fear what does not overreact, what does not explain itself, what does not chase approval. When you master your internal state, you become difficult to read, and what cannot be read cannot be controlled. This is why discipline is the foundation of danger. Discipline over speech, discipline over desire, discipline over anger. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, you sharpen yourself. Every time you delay gratification, you increase your leverage. The world is full of men who feel deeply but think shallowly. The dangerous man feels deeply and thinks several moves ahead. Internal danger also means you are no longer driven by the illusion of fairness. You stop expecting others to play by the same rules you do. You stop being shocked by betrayal, manipulation, or self-interest. Machiavelli understood this without bitterness. He observed humanity as it is, not as it should be. And once you accept reality without resentment, you gain clarity. Clarity is dangerous because it removes hesitation. Notice how your posture changes when you stop reacting emotionally. Your voice slows. Your words become fewer, heavier. You stop filling silence. You let others speak themselves into corners. This is not intimidation, it is composure. Composure unsettles people because it reflects power they cannot access. The most dangerous moment in a man's life is when he realizes he no longer needs to prove his strength. When validation loses its grip, when insults lose their sting, when fear of judgment fades, something irreversible happens. You become self-directed. And a self-directed man does not need permission, applause, or approval. Internal danger is invisible to the untrained eye. It looks like calm. It looks like patience. It looks like indifference. But beneath that surface is readiness, awareness, and resolve. Not explosive energy, but compressed power. Not reckless action, but deliberate capability. This is why the loud man is ignored, but the silent man is watched. And once this transformation begins, people sense it before they understand it. Conversations shift. Challenges soften. Disrespect becomes rare, not because you demanded it, but because your presence communicates that you are no longer a safe place for manipulation, projection, or control, that your reactions are no longer available for others to use, that your emotions are no longer weapons turned against you, that you have learned to govern yourself before attempting to influence anything outside of you. And in that moment when self-mastery replaces impulse, when calm replaces chaos, when silence replaces noise, danger stops being something you perform and becomes something you embody. Power does not announce itself. It does not seek attention, applause, or confirmation. The moment power needs to be seen, it has already begun to decay. The loud man is convincing himself. The silent man needs no convincing. This is one of the oldest truths Machiavelli understood. Real authority moves quietly, almost invisibly, shaping outcomes while others argue about appearances. Most men are taught that power looks like dominance on display. They believe it lives in raised voices, dramatic gestures, public victories. That belief keeps them weak, because noise reveals insecurity. The need to be heard exposes the need to be validated. And validation is a leash others can pull whenever they want to guide your behavior. The moment you begin to understand silence, everything changes. You stop filling empty space with explanations. You stop defending every decision. You stop correcting every misunderstanding. Silence becomes your shield, but also your weapon. When you speak less, people listen more. When you explain less, people assume more. An assumption is often more powerful than truth. Machiavelli observed that men judge more by appearances than by reality, because everyone can see, but few can truly understand. Silence allows others to project their own fears, expectations, and assumptions onto you. The more you talk, the more you limit how others perceive you. The quieter you become, the larger you appear in their minds. Power grows in the gaps between words. Watch how powerless men behave. They rush to speak. They interrupt. They justify. They overshare their intentions and emotions. They believe transparency earns trust. In reality, it removes leverage. Every word you give away is information. Every explanation is a window into your strategy. The silent man keeps his cards close, not out of deceit, but out of understanding that information asymmetry is control. Silence does not mean passivity, it means selectivity. You choose when to speak, and when you do, your words land with weight. They are not wasted on the unprepared or undeserving. When a man speaks rarely but decisively, people adjust their behavior around him. They listen harder. They hesitate longer. They question themselves more than they question him. This is why true power often feels invisible. It is not constantly asserting itself. It does not demand obedience. It creates an environment where obedience becomes the rational choice. Machiavelli knew that force draws resistance, but quiet authority reshapes incentives. People follow not because they are pushed, but because alternatives seem less favorable. Silence also protects you from emotional exposure. When you speak impulsively, you reveal what moves you. Anger, pride, fear, desire. Once revealed, these become tools others can use. The silent man denies his opponents this advantage. They do not know what provokes him, what excites him, what unsettles him. Uncertainty weakens opposition before any confrontation begins. There is a moment in every man's development when he realizes that speaking less gives him more control over the room. Conversations slow down. Others rush to fill the void. They talk themselves into mistakes. They reveal insecurities, intentions, contradictions. Silence invites confession without ever asking a question. The dangerous man listens not for entertainment, but for patterns. Power is silent because silence forces others to reveal themselves. Those who talk too much betray their strategies. Those who explain too much confess their doubts. Those who argue loudly expose their need to win. The quiet man simply observes. He lets others exhaust themselves while he conserves energy and clarity. Machiavelli advised princes to be foxes as well as lions. Silence is the fox's domain. It allows you to move unnoticed, to gather intelligence, to wait for the precise moment. Loud power is blunt. Silent power is precise. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not react to provocation. It waits for opportunity. As you grow into this silence, people will misinterpret you. Some will think you are weak. Others will think you are arrogant. Both misunderstandings serve you. The weak will underestimate you. The arrogant will hesitate. Either way, you gain time and space to maneuver. Silence creates ambiguity, and ambiguity creates advantage. This transformation often feels uncomfortable at first. Men are conditioned to equate speaking with existence. To stay silent feels like disappearing. But in reality, you are not disappearing. You are condensing. You are becoming harder to read, harder to predict, harder to control. Your presence becomes heavier, even as your words become fewer. Notice how silence changes your internal state as well. You become more patient, more observant, less reactive. You stop chasing immediate gratification through argument or recognition. You begin to value long-term positioning over short-term expression. This shift alone separates men who are acted upon from men who act. Power that speaks constantly is insecure power. Power that waits is confident power. The world responds differently to each. One invites challenge. The other invites caution. When you stop explaining yourself, people stop questioning you. When you stop announcing your intentions, people stop trying to interfere. When you stop reacting to every stimulus, you decide which battles even deserve to exist. Silence also forces you to confront yourself. Without the noise of constant expression, you hear your own thoughts more clearly. You recognize impulses before they escape your mouth. You refine your intentions before they become actions. This internal order translates into external authority. Others sense coherence even if they cannot explain it. A man who understands silent power does not need to dominate conversations to dominate outcomes. He does not need to win arguments to win positions. He lets others underestimate him while he positions himself advantageously. By the time his influence becomes visible, resistance is already impractical. This is why Machiavelli's most effective rulers appeared modest, even unassuming, while quietly consolidating control. They understood that silence buys time, and time multiplies power. The loud man spends energy to be noticed. The silent man accumulates leverage while unnoticed. As you adopt this silence, relationships change. Some people drift away, uncomfortable without constant feedback. Others grow cautious, sensing that you are no longer easily influenced. Conversations become more intentional. Words become more meaningful. Your presence alone begins to shape behavior. Power does not need to declare itself. It is felt in the pause before others speak. In the hesitation before decisions are challenged, in the careful way people choose their words around you. In the way silence begins to work for you, instead of against you, in the way outcomes start aligning, without you ever raising your voice. In the way your restraint communicates authority, more clearly than any display ever could. There is a moment in a man's life when he realizes that his greatest weakness was never lack of strength, intelligence, or opportunity. It was neediness. The silent hunger for approval. The constant desire to be accepted, liked, validated. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name. A man who needs is a man who can be controlled. Neediness announces itself in subtle ways. Over-explaining, over-giving, over-apologizing. Staying too long where respect is absent. Chasing conversations that are already finished. These behaviors signal dependency. And dependency invites exploitation. People do not consciously plan to use the needy man. They simply respond to the power imbalance he creates. Fear enters when neediness leaves. Not fear of violence, but fear of unpredictability. When you no longer seek validation, others lose their leverage over you. They cannot reward you into obedience or punish you into compliance. They no longer know what motivates you, and what cannot be motivated cannot be managed. Machiavelli observed that men are quick to offend those who make themselves easy to love, but cautious with those who appear self-sufficient. Neediness lowers your value because it signals scarcity within you. Self-sufficiency raises it because it suggests abundance. When you stop needing approval, attention, or reassurance, people sense that you are no longer desperate for their acceptance. Fear replaces neediness when your standards rise above your hunger. You become willing to walk away from situations that once held you hostage. You stop tolerating subtle disrespect. You stop negotiating your boundaries for temporary comfort. This shift unsettles people because they are used to your compliance. When compliance disappears, uncertainty begins. A needy man chases connection at any cost. A dangerous man allows connection to come or go without disturbing his center. This does not make him cold. It makes him grounded. He understands that attachment without respect is submission. And submission erodes authority faster than open conflict ever could. Machiavelli wrote that men should be either caressed or crushed, because small injuries invite revenge. Neediness is a small injury you inflict on yourself repeatedly. It invites others to test how much they can take from you without consequence. When you remove neediness, those tests stop because the cost of disrespect becomes unclear. Fear emerges not because you threaten punishment, but because you no longer offer reassurance. People fear losing access more than they fear confrontation. When your presence is no longer guaranteed, when your attention is no longer free, when your approval is no longer automatic, others begin to self-correct their behavior around you. The transition away from neediness is uncomfortable. At first, it feels like isolation. You notice the silence where constant interaction once lived. You notice fewer messages, fewer invitations, fewer attempts to keep you engaged. This is not loss. This is filtration. The people who relied on your neediness fall away. The people who respect your autonomy remain cautious and attentive. Fear also replaces neediness within you. Not fear of others, but fear of compromising your standards. You become more selective with your energy. You begin to guard your time, your attention, your emotional investment. You recognize that every yes is a form of surrender, and every no is an act of sovereignty. This internal discipline changes how you move through the world. A man without neediness does not chase power, because he is not trying to fill a void. He attracts it by default. Others sense that he is not easily impressed, not easily swayed, not easily shaken. This composure creates a quiet intimidation. Not because you dominate, but because you are not dependent. Machiavelli understood that fear is more reliable than affection because fear does not require maintenance. Love fades when benefits disappear. Fear endures as long as consequences remain uncertain. When people are unsure how far they can push you, they err on the side of caution. Neediness removes that uncertainty by making your limits visible and negotiable. As fear replaces neediness, your behavior changes in subtle but profound ways. You stop reacting immediately. You stop explaining why something bothers you. You stop justifying your decisions. You simply act according to your standards. Those who align with them stay. Those who don't feel the distance and adjust or depart. This shift also transforms how you experience rejection. A needy man interprets rejection as a verdict on his worth. A dangerous man sees it as information. He does not internalize it. He does not chase clarification. He notes it and moves on. This emotional economy preserves strength and signals confidence. Fear replaces neediness when you realize that being wanted is less important than being respected. Desire is unstable. Respect is structural. It shapes how people treat you even when they disagree with you. When you stop seeking to be liked, you gain the freedom to be firm. And firmness, when combined with restraint, produces authority. Others begin to sense that access to you is conditional, not on pleasing you, but on respecting boundaries. This changes the dynamic entirely. People no longer assume they can vent, demand, or manipulate. They become more measured. They choose their words more carefully. They hesitate before crossing lines they once ignored. Machiavelli would recognize this transformation immediately. He would see a man who has removed himself from the emotional marketplace, no longer trading compliance for acceptance. A man who understands that fear, in its refined form, is simply the awareness of consequence. When others know that losing you is possible, when they feel that your presence is not guaranteed, fear replaces entitlement. This internal shift also liberates you from resentment. You stop blaming others for taking advantage, because you no longer make yourself available for it. You accept responsibility for your boundaries and enforce them without drama. This calm enforcement is what unsettles people the most. There is no argument to win, no emotion to exploit, no reassurance to extract. As neediness fades, your self-respect becomes visible, not through declarations, but through behavior. You leave earlier. You respond less. You invest selectively. You no longer chase closure or explanations. The absence of need becomes its own signal, and that signal reshapes how others approach you, how they speak to you, how they test you, how they decide whether or not to challenge you. Because they sense that the old rules no longer apply, that you are no longer anchored by the desire to be chosen, that your center of gravity has moved inward. And when a man no longer needs, he becomes someone others fear losing rather than someone who fears being alone. Emotion is fast. Strategy is patient. One reacts, the other waits. Machiavelli understood this distinction better than most, and he built his philosophy around it. He did not condemn emotion because it existed, but because it exposed men to manipulation. The man ruled by emotion is ruled by whoever learns how to provoke it. Most men believe their emotions make them authentic. They wear anger as honesty, desire as passion, outrage as morality. In reality, emotion without discipline is a liability. It leaks intention. It announces weakness. It hands control to anyone clever enough to pull the right strings. The dangerous man does not suppress emotion, he subordinates it. Strategy begins the moment you stop asking how you feel and start asking what benefits you. This question changes everything. Feelings demand immediate expression. Strategy demands timing. When you prioritize strategy, you no longer rush to respond. You no longer feel obligated to react in the moment. You create distance between stimulus and action, and in that distance, power lives. Machiavelli observed that fortune favors the prepared mind, not the emotional one. Anger may feel justified, but it narrows vision. Fear may feel protective, but it shortens perspective. Excitement may feel motivating, but it clouds judgment. Strategy absorbs these emotions, studies them, and then decides whether they are useful or disposable. The emotionally driven man fights battles he did not choose. He reacts to insults, to pressure, to perceived slights. His opponents do not need to defeat him. They only need to provoke him. The strategic man chooses his battles carefully. He allows many things to pass unchallenged, not out of weakness, but because not every fight advances his position. This selective engagement unsettles people. They expect retaliation. They expect outrage. When it does not come, they grow uncertain. They replay the interaction in their minds, wondering what you are planning. This uncertainty shifts the balance of power. They are reacting to your restraint while you are calmly observing the consequences of their behavior. Strategy over emotion also changes how you experience conflict. You stop viewing disagreement as a threat to your identity. You stop needing to win every argument. Winning the moment is less important than winning the position. Machiavelli advised that appearing to lose can be more useful than winning outright if it leads to long-term advantage. The emotional man cannot tolerate this. The strategic man understands it instinctively. Emotion seeks release. Strategy seeks outcome. When you prioritize outcome, you are willing to endure discomfort in the present. You can remain silent when speaking would feel satisfying, but cost you leverage. You can appear calm when anger would feel righteous but expose your hand. This self-control is not suppression, it is investment. A man ruled by emotion reveals himself constantly. His face, his tone, his posture betray his inner state. The strategic man cultivates opacity. He does not lie about how he feels, he simply does not volunteer it. This forces others to guess, and guessing puts them at a disadvantage. Machiavelli understood that men are more offended by being outmaneuvered than by being confronted. Strategy humiliates without noise. It wins without spectacle. When you choose strategy over emotion, you stop escalating conflicts unnecessarily. You let others make mistakes while you conserve clarity. Every misstep they make becomes a resource for you. This mindset also transforms how you experience failure. Emotion interprets failure as a personal wound. Strategy interprets it as feedback. Instead of collapsing into self-pity or lashing out in frustration, you analyze what went wrong. You adjust. You refine your approach. This adaptability makes you difficult to defeat because you are not emotionally invested in a single narrative about yourself. A strategy over emotion also means understanding timing. Not everything must be addressed immediately. Some situations improve when ignored. Some opponents weaken when deprived of attention. Some opportunities reveal themselves only after patience. The emotional man is impatient. He wants closure, resolution, validation. The strategic man is comfortable with unfinished business because he trusts his ability to act when the moment is right. Machiavelli warned that men who act impulsively often create enemies they do not need. Strategy reduces unnecessary hostility. You do not reveal opposition unless it serves you. You do not escalate unless escalation benefits your position. This does not make you passive. It makes you precise. As you adopt this approach, your internal world becomes quieter. Emotions still arise, but they no longer dictate your behavior. You notice them, evaluate them, and decide how much influence they deserve. This internal hierarchy creates stability. Others sense the stability and respond to it. Emotional volatility invites challenge. Strategic calm discourages it. People often mistake emotional restraint for indifference. They believe you do not care. In reality, you care deeply about outcomes, about positioning, about direction. You simply refuse to let fleeting feelings sabotage long-term goals. This refusal is what makes you dangerous. You cannot be rushed. You cannot be baited. You cannot be easily derailed. Machiavelli would recognize this transformation as the mark of a ruler rather than a subject. Subjects react. Rulers plan. When you prioritize strategy over emotion, you stop being pulled into other people's agendas. You define your own. You stop living moment to moment and start thinking in sequences, in cause and effect, in consequences that extend beyond the present interaction. This way of operating also reshapes your identity. You are no longer someone who needs to be right, understood, or validated in every moment. You become someone who values leverage over expression. This shift alone changes how others treat you. They sense that emotional manipulation no longer works. They sense that provoking you will not produce predictable reactions. Over time, this discipline compounds. Each restrained reaction strengthens your ability to wait. Each strategic choice reinforces your confidence in delayed action. You become comfortable with silence, with ambiguity, with tension. These are the environments where most men lose control, but where you gain it. Emotion makes men transparent. Strategy makes them opaque. Emotion seeks relief. Strategy seeks advantage. Emotion focuses on the self. Strategy focuses on the situation. When strategy governs emotion, you stop being predictable. And unpredictability, guided by discipline rather than chaos, is what separates a man who is merely strong from a man who is genuinely dangerous. What you have heard is not a call to violence, cruelty, or domination. It is a warning about weakness disguised as virtue, and a lesson in power that most men are never taught. The world does not reward those who are loud, emotional, or endlessly accommodating. It rewards those who are controlled, calculated, and internally sovereign. A dangerous man is not created the moment he intimidates others, but the moment he masters himself. When danger becomes internal, chaos loses its grip. When power becomes silent, noise loses its influence. When fear replaces neediness, manipulation loses its leverage. When strategy rises above emotion, reaction loses its authority. These shifts do not make you cold, they make you clear. They do not make you cruel, they make you selective. You stop living as an open system where anyone can enter, provoke, or extract. You become closed, intentional, and deliberate. And that alone changes how the world responds to you. Most men are not defeated by enemies. They are defeated by impulses they never learn to govern. They speak when they should wait. They react when they should observe. They chase when they should stand still. Power slips through their hands not because it is unreachable, but because they leak it at every emotional impulse. Machiavelli understood a truth that still unsettles people today: morality without power is fragile, and power without discipline is short-lived. The balance lies in self-mastery, in knowing when to act and when to withhold, in understanding that restraint is not weakness but preparation. If people begin to treat you differently, speak more carefully around you, hesitate before crossing you, it is not because you have become threatening. It is because you have become difficult to control. You are no longer predictable. You are no longer easily provoked. You are no longer available for manipulation. This is the path most will never walk, because it requires patience over impulse, silence over expression, strategy over comfort. It requires the courage to let go of being liked in exchange for being respected, to let go of immediate relief in exchange for long-term leverage. And once you understand this, once you feel this shift take hold, you realize the final truth. Machiavelli would never say gently, the world does not fear the loudest man in the room. It fears the one who watches quietly, moves deliberately, and cannot be forced to act against his own design.